Hey everybody! Alright, so today we're going to be talking about testingjavascript.com. Of course, that's the big thing that's going on right now in my life, and so it's all I can talk about. But we're going to specifically be talking about this testing trophy thing that I've been pushing. So if you haven't seen the testing trophy before, you can find my original tweet by going to kcd.im/write-tests. This is where I came up with the idea of the testing trophy, or actually it's not. I included it in here. So here's the tweet, which happened on February 5th. This was written much later, actually, October 16th of last year. So yeah, if you go here, then you can find the original tweet. I made this using Google Drive, their like picture thing. And so yeah, it does not look like this because I don't know how to draw stuff. But I created this just kind of on a whim one day. It was, yeah, just kind of, I thought, hey, you know, there's the testing pyramid here, and I liked that idea mostly, but I think that the testing pyramid was created at a time and with definitions that are a little different from today, where like it was a lot more expensive to write unit or a lot more expensive to write end-to-end tests than it is today. The integration tests and the tools were like really hard, and unit tests are like a lot easier and whatever, they run faster. But like as you go up this triangle, there's this thing that I call the confidence coefficient. So like, yeah, as you go up the triangle, the turtle, you know, or your tests get closer to the turtle speed. So you're going slower, your tests will run slower. As you go up the triangle, they get more expensive. I think that's still true. But the tools that we have now are closing that gap a little bit. But in any case, it still is true. And so, like, you might wonder to yourself, okay, so why don't we just 100% all of our stuff should just be unit tests, right? Like if it's faster and it costs less, then why wouldn't you just do 100% unit tests? Like just based off of these two metrics, it seems like it'd be silly to do anything else. Well, that's because there's one metric that is not represented in the testing pyramid, and that is what I call the confidence coefficient. And I don't really have a actually, you know what? On my slide, this is my slides for the Friend and Masters workshop, testing workshop that I did a while back. Here, oh no, I guess I don't have it here. Where do you know what? I think I do know where this is. I gave a talk. You can find it on Egghead.io or on my YouTube channel. It's like a 30-minute talk where I talk about this. It's gonna be around here somewhere. I should have looked for this beforehand. I didn't think I was gonna show you this though. No, I don't have it on here. Let me just check one other thing really quick because I thought it was really useful. Might be in here. Okay. Maybe it was. Here we go. Okay, yeah. There we go. So with the testing trophy, and here, maybe I'll paste a link to this right here. And I'll answer your questions here in a little bit. So yeah, with the testing trophy, you have the like cheaper is on the bottom, more expensive is on the top, faster is on the bottom, slower is on the top. And the confidence coefficient looks like this. So at the bottom, you can solve simple problems like you mistyped a value, so your unit test is breaking, and all of those same things will probably be broken as you go up the pyramid, assuming you've written good tests. But you'll be able to detect those problems faster the lower you are on the pyramid, right? Just mostly because of this this thing, because you're not going to run all of your tests on locally, like all of your end-to-end tests locally, probably. So yeah, you can solve simple problems at the bottom, but you can solve bigger problems at the top. And that's sort of what I'm talking about when I'm talking confidence coefficient, where when you have a single end-to-end test, let's say you had an end-to-end test that ran around your application behaving like a user would, adding things to a cart, removing it from the cart, and then going through the whole checkout process. You could verify that they have the stuff in their cart that they were supposed to, and then they were charged the right amount and all of those things. So that whole process, you're covering a ton of components in your page. And so you're getting a lot more confidence from that. And because of that, you also are testing all of these things working together properly. So you're getting some integration confidence there as well that says, yes, the application can get into this state, and this state is a bad state for one reason or another. So the types of problems that you're able to solve, the higher up the trophy or the pyramid that you go, are much bigger and harder to catch on your own through like lower level testing. So that confidence coefficient is why I don't like the testing pyramid, because it's not reflective of the trade-offs that I think you should be making. So yes, they run slower the higher up you go the pyramid, but they also provide you a ton more confidence, and that's where that's why I created the testing trophy, was so that I could kind of get that I don't know, that like reflects that confidence that I'm getting. And so that's why it's shaped the way that it is, and it's not like a total science like as far as like the proportion stuff, so don't measure it, whatever, but this is just kind of a general guide to your return on investment. So you have the higher you go, the confidence goes up, and so you want to do as many of your tests at the top actually, but because of the other aspects of the of tests, your top tests are going to run a little slower, the development experience isn't quite as nice, and they're a little bit more expensive to run. And so we kind of find a good spot in the middle with this integrations space. Now, one thing that's not in the testing pyramid that I added to the testing trophy is this base of static. And so that refers to static typing with flow type or TypeScript, and linting with ESLint, and even formatting with Prettier. And I talk about all these things in the course. So with all that in mind, let's talk about some of the definitions here. So I think years ago, before UI was such a big thing that you would actually test, like most people don't test UI. This is why actually testingjavascript.com is the biggest, like by far the biggest source of knowledge about testing JavaScript on the planet, because there's like people just haven't been doing it for all that long, testing their front ends or testing JavaScript. And so yeah, that's like, it's kind of weird, but that's just the way that it is. So some of the definitions might be a little bit different from what you are used to. So when I'm talking about testing JavaScript, I am including the backend and considering that, but let's start with the front end first. So we have our static, that's the ESLint, the Prettier, the TypeScript or Flow. And I have a whole course on setting up those tools. I use Flow, but you can adapt this for TypeScript if that's what you're into. And then we have unit tests, and that's like you take this small component, maybe it has no dependencies or it has a few, you sever the connection to all these dependencies, and you test this thing totally in isolation. This is really good for edge case testing, where you have some like some special logic in here. Maybe you like if you have a lot of logic in a component, maybe it'd be a good idea to extract that out into a bunch of pure functions, and then you can unit test those really easily. That's like unit test bread and butter is pure functions. So that's kind of what the unit testing strategy is like, let's take this logic and we'll run just a bunch of tests on all the variations of this single module or the single function. So then we should spend most of our time in integration testing. So from a UI perspective, this is where UI and backend kind of differ a little bit on the definition. So the UI perspective, we're going to mock out backend. We might mock out animation libraries or something like that, so that we don't have to wait for elements to disappear off the page. But most of the time, we're going to not mock anything. We'll render a component that renders a page or a part of the page. But the idea is to see that all of these components can work together properly. And this is where we consider like React to be an implementation detail for the most part, and Redux to be an implementation detail. So lots of people will say, you want to test your Redux presentation components separate from Redux, and then you'll test Redux reducers themselves. You can test the Redux reducers themselves and the components themselves. That works. But the problem is that your tests, when you do that, your test can't verify that your application can even get into the state that you're testing in Redux, or that your component is using the state that's in Redux properly. So you can't really verify that through tests. And so this is why in the course I show you how to test the connected component with Redux. And so like you're just testing it all together. I think that that's the best way to test your React components, is consider Redux to be an implementation detail that the user doesn't know about, so your test shouldn't know about either. And I feel pretty much the same way about React. Now we are using React testing library. I'll show you how to do the same with Vue and with Angular, and various other frameworks. I consider those frameworks to mostly be implementation details, although they're like, and we're using React testing library to render a React component. And so at some point there is okay, we have to do something to get this thing that is framework specific onto the page. But once it's on the page, all of your tests should be free of implementation detail. They shouldn't know what framework you're using or anything like that. So that's what integration testing is. It's like not mocking anything except for HTTP calls and maybe some components that are doing some weird things like animations. But for the most part, it should just be doing treating those things as implementation details that the user doesn't care about, so neither should your tests. This is why we spend most of our time in integration. And then our end-to-end tests are like when we do this integration test, we're mocking out those HTTP calls. That's not like fantastic because we verified our application can do all this stuff by itself, but do we know that the requests that it's making are actually landing on the backend server, and they're properly formatted, and then the responses that are being sent back are what we expected them to be. So our mocks have to be like perfect, and we can't really always rely on our mocks being perfect, and so it's good to also have a couple of tests for our that test the whole end-to-end flow. Whoop. Sorry, that tests a whole end-to-end flow from one side, like from the front side all the way to the back side and then back again. And so those are generally like happy path tests. I really only, most of my edge case stuff happens in unit testing. I'll do a little bit of edge case stuff in integration, like, oh, there's an error state. Sometimes I'll do edge case stuff in end-to-end, and I show you how to do that in the course because sometimes that can be useful, like, oh, they typed in this wrong thing, and like we show this error message or something. I mostly show you how to do that just so you know how to do that, but generally I don't recommend that you do that. Most of the time that work should be done in integration or unit tests. So end-to-end test is mostly like, if I was a real user using this application, what would I do? I would register, I would log in, I would click around, I would add some things to my cart, I would type in this thing, I would backspace it, I'd do like, just pretend that you're an actual user really using the software, and then make assertions along the way. These tests tend to be a lot longer themselves, and that used to be a real problem because our tools were like, oh, this test broke, and you're like, well, shoot, which assertion was it? So now our tools are a lot better. You can watch a recording of it, see exactly what was going on. And so like having longer tests is no longer a concern in my mind. So yeah, you'll have a bit longer tests in end-to-end and integration than you would have in unit. Lots of times unit tests are just like single lines, or you can have an array of input, output, input, output. Those are nice, but the end-to-end and integration are generally going to be a bit longer. But yeah, so you'll pretend that you're a user using the software in the way that you expect users to use it, and you verify that it is working. And so putting all these things together gives you this trophy that is a reward to you for having a lot of confidence in building your application. So hopefully that is helpful. That visual of a trophy can help you in testing your software. Now I'm going to get to any questions that you have about stuff. So I would love to buy your course, but 162 is too expensive in Brazil. Scroll down to the bottom and check it out. We are going to work on purchase power parity. So stay tuned. We want to give you some stuff. In the meantime, I've got a silly amount of free content on my YouTube channel and various other places, so go check those out. I'm looking at your testing set here. Actually, I'm going to make it so you can all see what I'm looking at. There's no reason to not do that. Okay. I'm looking at your site. How does it compare to front-end master's courses? So it's just more, like way more, like a ton more stuff. That's pretty much the biggest difference. So you'll have more in depth, more material, and a lot more supporting material. Like these, like I don't know how to make these seem really what they are, but they're like silly awesome. They're like the entire course as blog posts. And so if you're like one of those people, oh, I don't learn with video, I think that's silly, whatever, then you will learn from the transcripts. They're like blog post versions of every one of the lessons. They're so good. So I strongly recommend you don't undervalue these. So yeah, and that's something that Front-End Masters doesn't have for my material. And there's just like a lot more. Also, these interviews with these people, really, really exciting, awesome stuff. So I recommend you don't undervalue those either. Okay. The change Babel made in migrating to V7s make me scramble to set up just properly. While I watch your video, set up it's still throwing bugs. Yeah, I'm not sure. That could be just about anything. So sorry. Good luck with that. You could file issues on the respective projects. What I recommend is create a, this is actually really, really awesome minimal, let's see, minimal Stack Overflow example. There's a page on Stack Overflow that explains, okay, so this is the end all be all way to report a bug, because 99% of the time in the process of doing this, you'll figure out what the problem is and you can move on. So reporting, debugging, this is how you do it. I'll paste a link to this in here. So go try that, and if edit and try again. I'll send it again. So yeah, try doing that, and if you still can't figure it out, then you'll at least have a project to send to the team, and maybe there's a legitimate bug. So good luck with that. Is it hard to test end-to-end compared to unit tests? If you're comparing one-to-one, so like one unit end-to-end test versus one unit test will be easier every single time. 100% of the time, unit tests will always be easier. But if you're comparing like how much confidence they're giving you, an end-to-end test, the amount of confidence that it can give you in shipping your application and knowing that it's not going to break, to write the same number of unit tests to get that same confidence, you'd never be able to do it, because unit tests are incapable of telling you that things are working together properly. And so like there's value to both. Yeah, how hard is it to, so yeah, it's a hard question to answer because it depends on what you're really looking for. I'm mostly interested in confidence in shipping code. So I do both because unit tests are really great. It's really easy to write a bunch of these fast, especially if it's isolated logic that handles a bunch of edge cases, like you're parsing a URL string or something like that. And then a single end-to-end test that makes sure that we're actually calling into that and something, then that's fine. I want to buy standard, but you make the super testing tier sound very juicy. It is very juicy. I'm not just making it sound that way. It is. So I definitely recommend it. Go talk to your boss. They should be paying for your education. If they're not, that's not okay. Okay, how can I convince my boss and team to use Cypress when they bring up the browser support and issue and prefer Selenium? Okay, yeah, so actually, Trung, this is for tomorrow's thing, but I'll answer it today. Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Q&A, so you can ask me all your questions, but I'll go ahead and ask this or answer this now. So Cypress, here's the thing with Cypress right now. It only supports Chrome. They are working on support for Firefox and Internet Explorer and Edge. So the thing is that, like, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, yeah, well, just 5 years ago probably, cross-browser support for end-to-end testing was really important. Today, it's way less important because they're the thing is that the differences between the browsers is getting smaller and smaller, and so running your tests across all of these browsers is unlikely to catch anything. And any of the subtle differences that you're going to see between these browsers, like any bugs that you come across, are things that you probably wouldn't have had tests or assertions for anyway. So even if you were to run this in every single browser you support, you're probably still not going to catch those like 1 or 2 little issues that you're going to find due to cross-browser issues, just because the differences are so minimal. So yeah, most of the time when I come across a cross-browser issue, it's because I didn't polyfill properly, or I am using a CSS feature that isn't supported. And so for the polyfill thing, that's like a fix this one time and then you never have to think about it again. So you don't need to like rerun, like you fix it in one place, that bug's never going to show up again. For the CSS thing, that one is a little tricky, and you can use linters and things to help you prevent yourself from using those features. But also you might consider looking into a tool called Applet Tools, which will take the HTML and CSS and JavaScript that your browser is running at the current moment and send it up to Applet Tools servers. And then it will apply that to a whole bunch of browsers, like mobile and everything, and then take snapshots of it and then compare them to do a visual regression testing kind of thing. And it's really, really smart. I strongly I think that it's super, super cool. So I recommend you give that a look. And that can verify that your CSS is being applied appropriately across these browsers. So I'm not concerned about cross-browser support. Selenium is a total nightmare compared to Cypress. I strongly recommend that you give Cypress a solid look. Have those people develop a couple tests in Cypress and like watch their minds explode, because Selenium, like we don't realize how bad Selenium is until we've tried something else. And Cypress is just super good. Okay, will the course be useful for a developer with 10 years plus experience? So so the thing about experience in software is it's kind of funny because and I'm not suggesting that this is you, but some people have 50 years experience. Okay, maybe not 50, that's a lot, but maybe 30 or 40 years experience, but all of that experience was in Fortran or something. The experience in software is kind of a funny thing. Like there are things that are really transferable, but there are lots of things that aren't. So if you're 10 plus years experience, but you're just getting started in JavaScript and testing, then yeah, absolutely. Like you're pretty much a brand new developer in that sense. But if you have 10 years plus experience in JavaScript and you've been testing for 10 plus years, I would suggest that you actually still can learn a lot from this course, because this course is using all of the latest and greatest tools. And unless you wrote those tools, then which I know you didn't because I wrote lots of these tools, then you will probably still learn a lot. So I would definitely recommend, whether you have 1 year of experience or 10 years of experience, this course is for you. The the first couple lessons or the first couple courses are geared toward fundamentals, which anybody can benefit from, because lots of times when we're learning testing, we get into this like, oh, I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff and it works, and I'll just modify that and that still works. Okay, so I kind of figure it out, and we totally skip the fundamentals. And so that's why in pretty much all of my teaching material, I always start with fundamentals, because even if you have 10 years of experience, you probably, unless you're a special person, which we're all special, right? We're all snowflakes, but unless you're, unless you really explicitly went through the fundamentals, you probably skipped over those. And so I found that teaching the fundamentals, often even very experienced devs will thank me for that, because the fundamentals are something lots of people skip over when they're learning. So even if you have lots of experience, you'll probably benefit from the fundamentals as well. Okay, when is the early bird pricing finishing? Company may not have approved payment in time. It'll be over on the evening of the 25th. I saw a message from Egghead that it will be over on the 26th, so I'm not exactly sure when it'll be over, but we'll see. But yeah, definitely by the 25th. I'm pretty sure it's going to be over by then. Maybe we'll extend it to 26th. So we'll see. I've been following you on Twitter. I look at your courses. Yay, thanks, Eden. I'm not sure how to say your name. Sorry. You never stop it. Oh, that's super nice. I've learned videos how to learn best, which is exactly why I love this course. Great, Jimmy. Yeah. Thanks, Mike. What's your stance on applying TDD to one-off campaign work? I'm not sure what one-off campaign work means, but I like TDD, and I think that you should use it and learn where it's appropriate and where it's not. I'm actually giving another live stream later this week about TDD, so watch that. We'll get into that deeper. How do you measure end-to-end coverage? I don't care about end-to-end coverage. I think about use cases, and when my boss comes to me and says, hey, do we have end-to-end coverage on the checkout process? I can say yes. The boss isn't going to, well, actually, sometimes the boss really does care about code coverage, and I say, whoa, stop. You don't care about code coverage. And repeat after me. I don't care about code coverage. Because that's not what really matters. What matters is use case coverage. So yeah, we've got the checkout process use case worked out, and then you measure code coverage on other things, but it's impractical to measure code. Well, I mean, okay, so some people do measure code coverage on end-to-end tests, but the problem with code coverage is, well, I just don't think that it's a useful metric for end-to-end tests. You can disagree with me if you want to, but I don't think it's a useful metric, so I don't even try. That said, if the tools were such that like it was really easy to do so, then I would do it just because it's so easy. And maybe that it will get to that point, because I know that Chrome has a built-in code coverage tool. I don't know if that's exposed through the Developer Tools API or anything like that, but if it were exposed and Cypress were to add that capability or something, then yeah, sure, that'd be kind of interesting. But I wouldn't put much effort into it beyond just like a configuration option to turn it on. Okay, yeah, good. Link for the course. Sure, the course is https://testingjavascript.com. Would these testing be applied with Elm? Great question. So if you're using a compiled JavaScript language like Elm or Reason, the principles that you learn in the course will be really useful to you, like the fundamentals, probably static analysis testing, probably not so much. Mocking fundamentals, maybe. I'm not sure. Elm is kind of a different environment. Configuring jest, probably not for a compiled to JavaScript language. I mean, other than TypeScript, of course. Like all these things, TypeScript you can consider just JavaScript, but like Elm or Reason, yeah, so probably not. I don't know if you can use jest with Elm. I think Elm kind of has its own thing. This one though, definitely, absolutely. The Cypress stuff, it doesn't, like, that is extremely independent of implementation. As long as you can load something up in a web page, then this is useful. So absolutely, this would be helpful in Elm or Reason. This one, conceptually, like lots of the concepts that you learn about would definitely be useful regardless of what framework or even compiled a JavaScript language you're using. So like lots of the specifics about the APIs and things, that won't be useful. But the concepts of how to think about testing, that will be helpful. And this one as well, if you could figure out a way to write a DOM testing library adapter or whatever for Elm, then that's totally useful. If you're using Reason, there is a BS DOM testing library, for buckle script bindings. And so you can apply the same thing if you're using Reason as well, which is pretty neat. So without further ado, I'm going to wrap this up unless there are more questions. Sweet. Thanks, Alex. I'm glad that you love it. Here's a note on Husky. I wonder if you ran into this problem. Like maybe a week ago, Husky released a 1.0 that broke something in my course, and I am planning on updating it. It was pretty small. In my course with Husky, you say, like in your scripts, you say pre-commit as a script, and then what you want your pre-commit script to do. And Husky used to work that way. Now they put that in a different configuration, like in the package.json or in another file. And so you have to move where that configuration is. That's all that it is. I'll re-record a couple lessons that reference that. But yeah, it should be a pretty easy transition, but I wonder if you bumped into that. This is the challenge, but I'll try to keep things up to date as quickly as I can. Yeah, all right. Thanks. Would the course discuss how to deal with timers and dates for tests? I'm struggling with that in the moment. No pun intended, I assume. Yes, so we do talk about timers. I can't remember specifically. So there's one lesson where I show you, okay, so we create this post, and it has a created at time that we just say new date, get local time or whatever. And then we make an assertion that that post is being saved to the database, but we have that date. And so what I do, here's a spoiler. I get the date before I click, save, and the date after I click save. And I know that the date it was created at should be between those two dates. And so I just verify that it's between those two dates. What we often, the mistake we often make with working in dates is that we think that we need to know the precise date, and that's not always true. And so mocking out the date object is not necessary for lots of the cases. Sometimes you have some timing thing that you want to be specific about. That's where things get a little bit more tricky, but Jest has this really awesome built-in capability for faking out timers. And so I'm pretty sure that I show you how to do that. I can't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure that I do. If I don't, then ask me about it later, and I'll add a lesson about that or something. Okay. Is it worth it to purchase the course while having access to your... Yes, it absolutely is. Rewind a little bit. Somebody asked that same question, and I talked about it. It's absolutely worth it. I mean, I don't know what your budget is, but if you can afford it, then and you want to get better at testing, then yes, you will learn things to get better at testing. Yeah, sorry about that, Kyle. I will get that updated as soon as I can. I am going out of town, so it'll probably not be until I get back. We'll see. You're welcome. I'd like to know, do we have discussion section in the course? Actually, I'm going to make a Spectrum chat for all people who have purchased the course, so you can discuss with other course takers. It's going to be fun. Oh yeah, testing a date picker. Yeah, you might... Yeah, that one will be interesting. I'll have to think about that one some more. Okay. So the last day is the 25th, I think. Might be the 26th. I don't think we're going to be doing student discounts. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm going to jump out. This was fun. I will see you all at another date and time. Actually, exact same time and place. So if you go to kcd.im/devtips, and I'll paste a link to that in our little chat here. Right here. Bink. Then go to testing Q&A. You ask, I answer. Part 2. I've done one of these before. Click on set reminder. and you will get notified when I start streaming. It's going to be great. So another person asking about front-end mastery subscription, scrub on back because I already talked about that. All right, I'm going to jump out. This was fun. I'm going to go take care of a car problem that I have. Actually, we just need to change the tires. All right, I'm going to jump out. It was fun. I will see you all later.